And hi, I'm Cindy, and welcome to Pearls of Liberty, September 25th, 2011. We're on the road for a Republic meeting in Visalia, California, and it was a good meeting. And one of the topics that was discussed a little bit was the fact that the earthquakes in Colorado and Washington, D.C. may well have been underground bases being blown up.
There's a lot of rumors on the internet. Benjamin Fulford and seems to be credible on this, but it's really impossible to know whether it's disinfo or not, and you just have to kind of go with your gut. We tend to believe him, but think there might be a little bit disinformation. Uh, One of my trusted sources, Joel Skousen, says that it clearly didn't happen. So there is something going on that we're not sure whether it's real or not, or whether it's disinfo. If maybe the elite want you to believe the bases have been blown up, so you grow complacent, or maybe they really were blown up, and we're close to a victory. We're hearing rumors of things like the Queen of England and other high officials in the New World Order being afraid to move because they could get indicted for various crimes against humanity, etc. So it's really hard to know what to believe. One of the things that Skousen pointed out was that if there was a nuclear explosion below ground in Colorado and Virginia, then there would have been blast release through the vents. The vents are one way. The air can escape if there was a blast. So apparently there's no reports of that happening. On the other hand, maybe the blasts were not nuclear. Maybe they were something else. There's been a lot of reports of strange rumblings in the ground from fracking in other places and around these places also. You can find YouTube reports of strange sounds immediately prior to the Colorado quake, and some of those strange sounds may be associated with fracking to release natural gas as a process of harvesting the natural gas that's really not good for the earth or other living creatures, etc. So again, there's a lot to sort through there, though. Just a thought: the biblical verse about the earth groaning seems to be in play here. So it's a time to be awake and listening to the Holy Spirit. That's about all we could say, bottom line there. And getting prepared and for destabilization in society, that's the word of the day, I think. We hope for things to remain stable, and as somebody put it in our Republic meeting yesterday, we hope for a smooth landing of the corporate slave global control state rather than a crash landing. A crash landing would be bad for everybody. So, and we know that megalomaniacs never release power willingly, and they could say that they're about to surrender, but that might be just words. These are liars. These are pathological liars we're dealing with. So we don't really know where we are in the stage of the game. We're just trying to pave a way for a better future and be on the side of peace and justice for humanity.
Yeah, there's so much disinfo surrounding all the everything that happens with the New World Order that it really becomes difficult sometimes to know what's true and what's false. So one scripture verse I was thinking about this morning was, "Oh man, that the Lord God has made, what does the Lord require of you but to love mercy and to live rightly and to walk humbly with your God?" And we can do that no matter what's going on. So sometimes it's best just to stick with the fundamentals, keep doing what you know is right. Clearly it's right to speak truth, even though sometimes it's difficult to know what truth is, but you shall know the truth and the truth shall make you free. That's a promise. And it's not just that the truth will make you free, it's also you shall know the truth.
Yeah.
That's part of that promise.
Right.
So cling to that. Pray it when you pray. Tell the Lord, hey, your word says, I will know the truth.
Doesn't mean we might be unsure of what the truth is for a season until
Yeah.
the Lord reveals it to us.
Sure.
And what we're saying right now is that's where we're at in terms of what's happening with this underground base thing. We want to believe it's true, but we know that the enemy misleads through disinfo. So we're still in process on that.
Yeah, we don't want to let our defenses completely down, set ourselves up for, I mean, what can happen is people become disillusioned. As a pastor that I used to know used to say, in order to become disillusioned, you have to first have been illusioned. So we're trying to not look at illusions. We're trying to look at reality and find hope in the things that we know are true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one thing that we know is false is the fake left-right paradigm. So we want to do everything that we can to be free from that. That's an enslavement mechanism. Our real paradigm is liberty versus tyranny, or freedom versus enslavement. And that's our grid for evaluating truth and reality. Investigation into first-hand info as best we can find it, and using the true paradigm of liberty versus tyranny.
Sure. And another interesting thing that has happened this week that's not absolutely clear how to interpret is the big changes in the stock market. The Dow and the NASDAQ moved down substantially, and surprisingly, silver and gold also have just kind of fallen off the cliff. And I tend to be a little paranoid. I can't help but wonder if the COINTEL forces that oppose Alex Jones might push something like that. I mean, obviously there are other reasons for it to go around. There's still huge open short positions in silver that need to be closed at some point. But a lot of the patriot people, truther people, take refuge financially in gold and silver, and that can tend to make people feel unsteady when the investments that they've placed in order to avoid financial ruin are also tanking. So.
And what this does, that the fact that silver and gold fell with the market, I think really tells us how much control the controllers still have. There's a lot of people that are saying that they're on their last legs financially, that they have been cordoned off in terms of the damage that they can do, but that there still is a lot of damage that they can do. And they want to remove the safe havens, and the extent to which they're successful in doing that, right now it's just a 1 or 2 day thing, but of course it's silver has gone back into the 20s, and it wasn't up into the mid 30s to above 40. So that's a significant drop. Yeah. And how long it'll stay that way, we believe that ultimately it will go back up, like a beach ball being held underwater. It'll bounce back up, because when you're basing that on an unbacked currency, and by unbacked I don't just mean unbacked by a commodity, I mean unbacked by a stable society. I believe that a fiat currency that's backed by a stable society can be just as stable as a currency that's backed by silver or gold, but we don't have either. So we have something that does have long-term value, gold or silver, going down along with a commodity that a fake commodity of a paper dollar. So that tells us that the paper dollar still has a lot of power in it, and that's because this system, currently military industrial complex, however you want to call it, that still does have a lot of power, obviously. That's where we are.
So we shall see what happens with that. Hold on to your hats. And also something that's been significant in the news this week is Palestine and demands for a Palestinian state.
Right.
And would you like to comment on that?
Sure. This is another divide and conquer paradigm. In this case, used by the elite to gain control over humanity. It is their favorite scenario is to create a war and divide groups into both sides, and to sit above that and make money off of both and accomplish the destruction that they want to accomplish. These are psychopaths that have been running the world for decades or hundreds or even thousands of years. This has been the operational tactic of these people: divide and conquer and kill, because the more people they kill in large wars, the more they are able to exercise control over the destruction. So the so-called peace process in the Middle East is really more of a destabilization process. The goal is the opposite of what's stated. They want war, they want destruction, they don't want peace. So the object is to goad Israel into giving up enough of its territory to destabilize the region so that they have to come back with some kind of a military tactic force that will result in a huge destabilization of the region. And ultimately, a World War III. Now, World War III could come about by other means. It might not necessarily be Israel, but that's what's going on there right now is a destabilization rather than this so-called attempt at peace by giving a Palestinian statehood. I'm not against Palestinian statehood. I'm actually for it. But what you have is whenever people are choosing sides in an inherently unstable situation, you're going to get disillusionment, and it's just as bad as left versus right. It's the Jews versus the Arabs, or the Palestinians versus Israel. It's the same divide and conquer mentality.
For whatever reason, there's so much speculation. I tend to believe that it's because the devil hates people and wants us all dead so that he can postpone his own judgment, or maybe indefinitely, whatever. But there's just this tendency in the earth for bloodlust and this drive to get us to kill one another.
Mm-hmm.
And would you like to comment a little bit on what you read me about just the climate in the Middle East, how people react emotionally?
Well, us in the Western world, we tend to think of the world and humans as being like ourselves. I mean, everybody does that. We think we're like one another. And whereas so oftentimes people in other parts of the world are very different. The Middle Eastern mentality, and you have a mix among the Jews in Israel, you have a mix of native Middle Easterners and those that have come from the West. But the Arabs, by and large, or those in surrounding areas, are more native, and they can be, we misjudge them if we think that they're going to be civil and nice. And I was reading stories of people in the Arab communities skinning alive Israeli soldiers. And I believe that that's true. I believe that that's happened. I believe that that's absolutely barbaric and unbelievable to many of us that such a thing could happen. But that does happen, and it does inflame hatred. And even in Israel, among the people that are within that country, there is anger at one another over routine things that go much beyond what we would call the road rage. In America, it's people shaking fists at one another. This is a normal process of part of their day is these outbursts of temper that we tend to think in America and in the West that it's just uncivil and inhumane behavior, or at the very least it's just unkind, and we've learned to not behave that way, but other people haven't. So it's relatively easy to inflame people's passions in an area like the Middle East. And we should do all that we can to dial down those passions by understanding both sides and understanding that Israel is not 100% in the right, and the Palestinians are not 100% in the right, and I personally don't want to stand with one against the other. I want to stand to expose the globalists' attempt to create a conflict between the two. It's easy to say, I stand with both, but unless you recognize that there is a plan, a very active plan, to inflame the conflict while at the same time trying to pretend like you're not, unless you recognize that tactic, you're going to be pulled in by it. And that's exactly what they want.
And it is true that in this country we're all raised to be PC and nice and please and thank you. I shouldn't say all, because our society's actually, our culture's being diluted as people come in. But we do tend to think that everybody is nice. I mean, nice people think that people are nice, but that is a big mistake. And some nice people did some unusual things this week and were protesting on Wall Street.
Yeah.
And last night they were not treated nicely, or yesterday.
I don't know any more about that story than I did. It's kind of a feverish attempt to catch on the news sometimes when we have a busy weekend like this, and I don't know all that I should or could and will later about what happened in Wall Street and that there were some 80 some odd arrests and what's going on there. But again, here's a place where the Americans are being goaded into a protest, and it's almost as if some people are saying you've got to be out in the streets protesting or you're cooperating with the big banks, and you're on the side of the evil unless you get out into the streets. And I don't necessarily think that's true. I don't necessarily think that protesting in the streets is always the way to go. I mean, it certainly is a place and a time for it, and it's good to show that the American people are taking a stand against the financial raping which is going on in America. But you have to be as wise as a serpent and as harmless as a dove, and recognize that there is going to be attempts to provocateur and to get you into a position where you're not able to stand your ground peacefully. I'm not sure what happened. I do know that groups like We Are Change were involved, and I do highly respect those groups and am glad that people are taking a stand. But you got to be wary about being goaded into something that will actually make the situation worse.
Sure, and if we're all in the streets, we're all easy to kill, and they have a good reason to kill or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So one brief thing, speaking of protests and nice people being put in jail, we should mention Ian Garland, our friend Ian Garland, who we've talked about before, and who we have the website fastandfuriousjustice.
Is that Justice Now? Fast and Furious Justice Now?
Fastandfuriousjousticenow.com.
No?
I don't know. I'll post the link. But he was Sheryl Attkisson from CBS News on national level was going to do an interview with him this week, and it was all set up with the sheriff. And the day before the interview was scheduled to occur, a judge issued an order that the interview could not take place. So
and the judge is acting out of his jurisdiction, out of his authority. I mean, it really is the sheriff that has the authority to say what goes in that situation. The judge is overruling him. That's wrong. And
it's heartbreaking for Ian. I mean, he was told that he'd have to wait 2 years for a jury trial, and he just wants to tell his story. He's an innocent man. He wants to tell his story. So this is not a good situation. Please pray for Ian and write letters. We'll put up the address.
They would not even let the reporter in as a visitor, just to come in during visiting hours.
That's correct. They said, well, if we can't do an interview, we'll just come in and she can meet Ian. And typically there are no restraints on Ian has actually been made like a trustee of the prison or something. When you are a well-behaved prisoner, you have special privileges, and he's allowed an hour visit. I think it's per day now, and they did not allow Sheryl Attkisson to go in and visit him.
So if you don't recognize that this is a serious breach of justice in America, and that Fast and Furious is a huge, huge, huge expose of the crimes of the ruling government in Washington, the Obama administration, and Eric Holder, the Justice Department, just the whole 9 yards. It's just blatant. So of course they don't want the truth to come out.
Yeah. And I will I'll post Ian's address. If you could find it in your heart to take 5 minutes and write him a card or a letter, I know that would be very encouraging. And he's limited in what kind of media he can receive. He can't send any CDs or DVDs or anything, but he can receive as much print material as he wants.
We've sent him websites that would be useful in large manila envelopes, and he seems to get those.
Yeah, they open it sometimes and probably take things out, but who knows. But if you even just drop him a card with 2 or 3 lines and say hi. I know.
Yeah.
Special friend.
Yeah, praying for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and our Pirl culture segment will be very brief today, but we watched Serpico this week. It's an older movie.
Wow, yeah.
But so good.
Yeah, Frank Serpico was an amazing guy. I don't know why I'd never seen that movie. I mean, obviously it was as big, and that the name Serpico and Al Pacino's portrayal of this character is just it's a landmark film. It really is.
Yeah.
And this took place in the 70s, or was it early 80s?
Not sure.
Yeah.
I think 70s.
Yeah, I think it was the 70s. It was one of Al Pacino's
He looked
first
pretty shaggy.
really feature films. He lived in Greenwich Village as an undercover cop, and was really wanting the police force to have good relations with the community, but the police force had all these shady dealings with mobsters and with the criminal gang, the gambling elements.
Stuff going on. Yeah.
Yeah, so that he did not want. He wanted to be a good cop, a clean cop, and didn't want to compromise. And he was the only one, other than a couple of people that backed him up, that made it possible for his story to get out and to get national attention. Other than that, it was just amazing that the level of corruption in the New York City police. And we don't have any real reason to believe that it's a whole lot different today. In fact, it's probably worse. So that Frank Serpico had to go live in Switzerland to afterwards in order to feel safe for his life, relatively, incognito. And so, amazing guy. Just I think Al Pacino does a good portrayal of him. I heard him live, of course, 40 years later on Alex Jones' show. He doesn't do interviews, but just on a whim they called him up, and the personality that comes through on the radio interview is real similar to the way that Al Pacino portrayed him. So if you haven't seen Serpico, please see it.
Yeah, great film. So just a couple words about the Republic meeting. It's very encouraging. Last month's was a kind of bedlam. I didn't enjoy it very much. There was a serious conflict, and some people ended up leaving the Republic. But some of them we miss, and some of them we don't miss. So
yeah, it's a weeding out process, and we believe we found a group whose hearts align with ours, and who are into seriously building for the long term. And there's always a shaking out, and there's always people that don't quite fit for whatever reason. So that process will probably go on, and no doubt we'll never be completely at ease. There's always the opportunity for the human soul, in whatever form, to be perverted. So we're not in illusions that we have found the perfect group of people, but it's good stuff.
Yeah, just if you're a truth person, find a place where you can invest yourself. Find a place where you can sow into something good, and I wouldn't put all my eggs in one basket at this point. But there are good people out there, and find some, and
yeah, a lot of people in America now are waking up and really realize that this is the time to take a stand, to stand against corruption, to stand for justice and peace, and to stand with one another. Because as appealing as ideological anarchy, theoretical anarchy is, I'm not talking about going around breaking things, which is the typical misconception of anarchy. But there's a lot of things that are appealing about the whole concept of no government. We don't realistically think that that's a real solution. We believe that a republic form of government is the best solution. Some people believe that a direct democracy is the best solution. I don't think so. I think a republic is, and there is this group, the Republic of the United States, that has re-inhabited the U.S. Constitution and the state constitutions, and that's who we're choosing to align ourselves with.
Yeah, good people. So, thank you for joining us this morning, or whenever you happen to be watching. And no Dr. Noah this week. Sorry. Dr. Noah and John Ballou and we are working on a series of books and videos called Dr. U. So check Dr. U, DOCTOR, letter U.biz, and you can get a little Dr. Noah injection. So
Mr. Fireball himself.
Mr. Fireball himself. So have a great week and love one another.
Bye.